Last weekend, I competed in a Snap Clash tournament with a bunch of other content creators. It was a really fun time, but I ended up losing in the first round to this deck. Now, my opponent wasn't the only one running this deck. In fact, I think it was the most frequently seen deck in the tournament, at least variations of this. 3 or 4 of the top 5 players, I think, were running this deck at least. You got to switch it after every round, but everyone had one of these in their back pocket. It seems to be at the top of the meta, and it is Shuri 0. Now, unfortunately, this is a bit of an expensive list. You're going to notice there's even Series 5 cards like Sauron in here, but then you also got Shuri, Titania, She-Hulk, not the most attainable cards. She-Hulk a little bit more attainable as she's dropped to Series 3, but still, the rest of the list is practically Series 3, so it's not cheap by any means. And in fact, I don't even have all these cards, so this isn't the deck I'm going to be running today. I just wanted to showcase it because it is statistically the highest win rate deck right now. It just seems to be at the top of the meta, and if you have the available cards, I would suggest running this list right here. At least in tournament scenes and battle mode, this is doing very, very well. Okay, but this is the deck that I'm actually running. All right, so this is my take on Shuri 0, and it's based on what I have available in my collection. There's quite a few changes here, but I feel like the essence of the deck is the same, at least as much as I can make it. Okay, so it's a little bit cheaper. We got things like Thor in the deck instead of Typhoid Mary. We're getting rid of that Sauron for Wong. So we're kind of playing more into the honor reveals of the doubling of power rather than removing the abilities, which is a bit unfortunate because I think the Sauron is really, really nice. Because in this list, there's only 0 to remove the bad abilities. But I don't have too many I want to remove. We're looking at Red Skull, probably the best target, but I'd actually rather Shuri him. So almost what I prefer to do with this deck is to 0 the Ebony Maw or the Lizard, just for raw stats, for something to do in the early game, right? So we can do that and be happy. Then we can play Thor, and if we get Mjolnir, we can actually play Mjolnir on our turn 6 alongside Arnim Zola at a Wong location. And imagine the dream combination of being this. We Wong, we Black Panther at that location, then we Arnim Zola, which is going to then hit either Wong or Black Panther, maybe even in that order, which would be fantastic, but it's going to trigger twice and duplicate them both at other locations. And then we can play Mjolnir and give a bunch of buffs for the Thor as our third played card. You probably wouldn't want to play it at the old Wong location, played at a new one, anticipating that your Wong's going to copy over there, but you can buff your Thor like crazy and happy days. That's like crazy amounts of power, but there's so many other outs here. We have Aero in the deck as well, right? I recently did a poll on Twitter to see what people thought were the strongest cards, and by a landslide, Shuri and Aero were at the top, with Aero actually being the number 1 at 60% voted. So it does seem like these are 2 of the best cards right now, and they're both in the same deck and synergize with each other. Because if you can Shuri on the Aero, so a 4-5 play, that's pretty good. Maybe even Shuri on 5 and then Aero on 6. You get a 14 power Aero that can actually hold her own and remove your opponent's game plan, like totally distract them. So there's a lot going on in this deck that is really, really good. Now, the downsides are that it's a little bit on the expensive in terms of cost to play the cards. It's a little bit on the expensive side, right? We end up not doing a whole lot in the early rounds to wait for those crazy combos later on and hope we draw them. Luckily, there's enough combos that the consistency seems to be there, and the early game is offset by like an early Sunspawn on turn 1 to just kind of reap the rewards of that unspent energy, and then also maybe a 0 in Ebony Maw or just throwing down Thor. There's a few options, and we can kind of bide our time. We don't have to play cards. You can win games very frequently by just playing Wong, Black Panther, Arnim Zola. That combo is insane. You get a 32 power Black Panther at each other location. You know, mind you, if the locations provide enough space, and maybe even more if the Wong is destroyed first, resummons, and then the Black Panther goes there and triggers the honor reveal again. Oh my gosh, it gets insane. So that was just a quick deck overview. We're going to play some games, and then I'm going to give some star ratings based on how I feel about this deck. All right, let's see how this deck can do. I know it's a good deck, but I struggle sometimes. Oh, Throne Room is excellent. Ebony Maw, we can hold. One of the things I always have to remind myself when I have Ebony Maw in hand is you don't have to rip it turn 1. If you've got other things like Sunspot, like Lizard, like 0, you can wait. You can just wait. There's no harm in waiting. Oh, I was going to say unless Iceman snipes Ebony Maw, but that was a quick dodge. All right. So now it becomes a little bit more tempting to play it, but again, I don't have a 3-cost card. And all the other draws could be 1 or 2. Or higher. So I think it's fine to pass. Wong getting hit is kind of nasty. Basically, the fallback combo here is the Wong Black Panther Arnim Zola. Oh, bonus energy, huh? It's going to put us to 4. I guess that's just going to be good for Sunspot. I don't feel like I'll end up with the highest power at Throne Room until I do some other shenanigans like Red Skull with Taskmaster. So, I think I'm okay to do this. Next turn, can't do anything. They're all 5 in my hand. That is another problem with this deck. It's very late game, you know? Luckily, you only need a few cards to kind of win it out. That's not that bad. But I don't have a draw next turn, so it does make it rough. I can't play anything now in the mid, which makes it really... Oh, but She-Hulk comes up pretty clutch here. I will definitely compete. See if they got 6 power to beat me out there. Let's see what happens. Wow, they don't. They don't even play there. Wolfsbane in the mid. Part of me wants to say bot vibes, but they're not rocking any of the foils. And that's a kind of an odd snap, if I'm being honest with you. Okay, so I think Red Skull into Taskmaster, both cards will get the highest power. That's probably a wrap. I'll actually snap back. You gotta snap back before the turn, right? One thing I'm realizing is basic game knowledge, but that, you know, don't snap after you make the big play. People just retreat and you don't get that 1 cube. Oh gosh, okay. Oh dear. I see what they're going for. They're gonna play Odin there, which means I'm not going to win the mid, and if the tiger goes to the flooded location, I lose. But we have aero, which is probably the most broken card in the game, and priority. So I'm just gonna pull over the Odin to the mid. It's gonna do absolutely nothing, and we're gonna win the game. Wow. There you go. And there you go. And I don't think that was a bot. Look at that Odin variant. I've never seen anybody with that. There you go. 8 cubes. Could have lost if we didn't have Aero. Aero is such a good card. That's why this deck is kind of just bonkers right now, because it's running Shuri and Aero, which in my opinion are probably the top 2 cards in general in the game at the moment. So you get 8 cubes like that when you play Aero on turn 6. Okay, let's keep going. I'm so sorry. I totally forgot one card. I mixed it up. I didn't have Thor in. I had She-Hulk in, which I was kind of experimenting to find what was, you know, with my collection, what would work for this deck, because I don't have all the cards. And a lot of the cards started feeling not necessary, and I felt like if I was adding these options, I needed more support. So when I started putting Wong and Black Panther package in, I thought Thor was a great add. And I've been playing with that ever since. So Quantum Tunnel again. My goodness. Okay. It's fine. It is the featured location at this moment in time. Shuri coming out, which probably did proc her on reveal. Thor is gone. I could just straight up buff the lizard, but Ebony Ma is a nice one to buff up and just sack this location. Are we okay with that? I mean, I could play lizard at the Quantum Tunnel later. That seems pretty good. By the way, how fire is this Shuri variant and this Black Panther variant? I got them in back-to-back days, which just motivated me through the roof to make this video, while it also being, you know, a good deck. Armor coming out, that's fine. That means you won't destroy my Ebony Mind. As we can see, Shuri did proc the on reveal. That's great. Okay, so let's just chuck these out and see what happens. It's gonna be crazy. I mean, if we get Red Skull, we're great. But if we get like Taskmaster, it's gonna copy Lizard. If we get 0, that's not so great. But Arnim Zola is actually cracked, because that would maybe hit Shuri. We'll see. We'll see. We're just having fun here at this point. Okay, Red Skull comes out. That's fantastic. And then if this can be Arnim Zola, we're laughing. Wong's just kind of weird unless I draw Arnim Zola. Bast. Okay. And Spider-Man. That's fine. I didn't want to play this turn anyways. Although that would have been all right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could just throw the lizard out over here. I don't really want to put something there and risk some weirdness. So let's just do that. I still have quite a few cards in the deck. Oh, 0 onto... Why would you do that? Why would you 0 the Wasp? I guess maybe to get rid of the 0 effect, to just get stats out. Is Cerebro coming out? This is a Cerebro 3. Which won't work? Why? Wait, why? Oh, Red Skull. Oh my gosh, get wrecked. Get absolutely destroyed. Look at the great purple glow with this Dan Hip variant. Oh my gosh, I'm in love. Okay, so if I hadn't played Lizard, Black Panther Arnim Zola is the play, right? So maybe that was a misplay on my part. But what we can also do is we can Arnim Zola here, and it's going to hit 2 things. Now, those things might not be that good. And it might not be worth doing because my current state of the board is pretty good. Okay, cards can't even be added there anymore, and we're winning the location. We just snap. It's over. Yeah, he's gone. He's gone. And there we go. That's an instance of where I shouldn't have snapped, right? There was no point in me snapping. I should have just clicked end turn, because maybe he would have stuck out for the end of the turn, and I could have gotten an extra cube. Instead, I snapped, and he was like, well, screw this, because now it's 4 cubes, and I only got 1. These are the little things that I have to pay attention to more if I want to rank up. But that's a good showcase of how strong this deck can be, even with chaos in the Quantum Tunnel, right? All right, let's keep going. I want to see if we can sweep with this one. It is so strong. Okay, and now I'm back. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna slide, well, not emergency, phone call, family phone call, and now I'm back. Now I'm back. All right. Try not to break these up. Okay, Thor, Black Panther, Taskmaster, Wong. This is a pretty nice hand because we can go Wong to Black Panther and then Taskmaster on 6 and even Thor earlier. And if we get Mjolnir for Wong, it's just nuts. It's just kind of cracked. So in these instances, I like to snap. But we're going to play this one out and see what happens. Shuri is actually better. It's better than Wong because it doesn't telegraph the Cosmo play. But I like running both just because the flexibility, right? It's not a bad idea in deck building to just have multiple options. Okay, this sucks now. This does suck because now I'm stacking at one location, right? I'm in a rough bind where I can't actually play at 2 of the 3 locations. So we can get huge at one location, but we're going to struggle over here. And I don't want to hit, if I do this, I don't want to hit Arnim Zola. I want to draw Arnim Zola. We're going to try. We might hit Mjolnir too. It's just actually just all around a bad idea. If I do get Arnim Zola, I don't want to risk putting a Thor there. So I actually think I'm just going to pass. Okay, they're going to go with Deathlock at the Quantum Tunnel. Probably trying to look for death or something like that, right? Aero. I don't know. Venom. Brutal. Oh my gosh, but what a gorgeous Venom. Oh my gosh. So, I think it's still worthwhile following through with the plan. But in a sense, Shuri isn't actually that good anymore. Because it almost becomes better to do the Wong into Black Panther and then Arnim Zola if we can. I have no means of getting power elsewhere. That's my current issue. But alternatively, if we Shuri and then Red Skull, and then I just start chucking things over at the Quantum Tunnel and hope that I hit Aero maybe? What an awkward position to be in. Only 6 cost cards can be played there. Well, I think I'm going to go with my gut instinct and go with the Wong play. Just in the off chance that we end up drawing Arnim Zola, right? What if my opponent's setting up a Galactus play? Got all these destroy things. Okay, still no Arnim. That is so unfortunate right now. Feels like it's got to be Black Panther. Get the crazy buffs. I do get +3 power to the other locations. And then we're just going to throw out Sunspot and Thor. Carnage comes out, destroys all the things. I mean, my opponent's having a time. Okay, that doesn't do anything. Deadpool's pretty bad. They're not getting good rolls over the tunnel. Oh, it is Arnim Zola. So this is the combo. This is the combo. I'm not going to snap because I feel like it would make my opponent just disappear. So we're just going to let it be, see what happens. So basically, we're going to get 232 power Black Panthers at each location. And actually, if Wong is destroyed first by the Arnim Zola trigger, it's going to then destroy Black Panther, who's then going to activate again at the new Wong's locations. Watch this. Let's see if it... Okay, no, it goes Black Panther first. That's not as optimal, but it's fine. They're still going to trigger. That's going to be 32, 32. And then it will trigger the Wong, so that's technically 34 net power at each location. I don't know what my opponent played, but they're gambling because that's just going to go out and in for death, which was their best option, but certainly not enough power. They had some sick variants, dude. Oh my gosh. There you go. That's 2 cubes. So that was just kind of lucky. We top decked Arnim Zola at the final bell, but the backup plan to this entire deck is that 3-card combo, which is just nasty. It's been nasty since Black Panther has been out. There's never been a better trio than Black Panther, Wong, Arnim Zola. They're best friends. All right, okay, this is going to be the last one because I got a lot of stuff going on outside of the video space here that needs my attention. So we're going to rip one more because it's going pretty well so far. Am I right? It's a pretty good deck. Just so happens. By the way, I didn't make this deck. This is just like, this is, you know, community driven, I would say. But the reason, one of the reasons I'm showcasing this is because I'm competing in a tournament in New York shortly. And if you tune into that tournament, it's the Snap Clash tournament with Cowtech, Super Tech God, and Loot Muncher. They're hosting it, and a bunch of us content creators are getting together. It's going to be super fun. But watch. This deck will be there frequently, I imagine. When we did a tournament recently, just this past weekend, it felt like everybody was running this deck. So much so that I was trying to counter it. And one of the most successful ways I found to countering this deck, if you happen to find it a lot on ladder, is cards like Cosmo, obviously, to stop those on reveals. But then also Goose. I was literally playing Goose and then Mystique to copy the Goose effect so that my opponent couldn't do those big Red Skull plays or whatever else. Because that's, look at the curve of the deck. There's a lot of high cost stuff. Anyways, this is interesting because Zero's effect could take place afterwards if I were to wait, but Thor is kind of disappointing here because the Mjolnir. I almost enjoy passing for Sunspot. I'd give a lot of power to Sunspot here. In fact, we're going to go over here, try and compete at Lemuria, and let the buffs happen at Monster Island. See, that's a tell too. My opponent should know that I played a 1-cost because of what I played there. So I want the Zero ability to proc on my Red Skull. So we're going to pass, get another 4 for old Sunny here. Then 0 into Red Skull and then Taskmaster, I imagine. Or, if the opportunity arises, we Aero. Okay, that's an interesting play from my opponent. And you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. We're going to Arnim Zola now, the Red Skull. The Red Skull is going to be copied to both locations, and we'll probably win the game just like that. Kingpin coming out also tells me to be wary of Magneto or Aero. Both I dodge. I don't have a 3 or 4 cost out on the field, and Arnim Zola is going to be played at Hell's Kitchen anyways. Depends what my opponent does here with the Daredevil effect. If they play Professor X at Lemuria, let's say, it's a weird play, but that could actually ruin me because they'd tie that location. I don't plan on winning Hell's Kitchen. I'd have to actually just pass my next turn to give Sunspot the buffs and hope that's enough. Or play something of reasonable value at the left location. Let's see what they play. It's going to be Polaris shifting over Sunspot. Not a big deal. They're trying to get away with the flooded location, but that's not going to do it. So now I feel pretty confident in playing Arnim Zola and just winning this thing outright. This is some of the big plays. The big plays in this deck are the Arnim Zola and the Aero plays. I do enjoy this deck. It's quite fun. So we could have snapped, but again, I don't want to intimidate my opponent and get them out of here, which kind of shows you're going to see the star ratings in a second, and I think this is why I have this at a low cube rating. I don't want to spoil too much because we're going to talk about it, but in this instance, my opponent sees I have a lot of potential. but they don't know exactly what might be coming out. There's a few avenues it could take, and they're probably trying to assess my possible plays. And if they detect that it's an Arnim Zola, then they dip. If I snap, it's probably the Arnim Zola and they want to dip. They did play something on the right, but there's no shot it's going to be enough. I can't imagine unless it's... See, Cosmo, but too late. Juggernaut doesn't move anything that's added to the location. The Cosmo would have been really nice, but they didn't have priority, and maybe they forgot that, right? Because I had a power advantage because of the Polaris, actually, moving over the Sunspot, and then in the mid, we were fine. We just overall had more power. So anyways, or actually Red Skull was winning this location at the beginning of this, so I was winning 2 out of 3, but there you go. There you go. Like, I didn't even try very hard. I was distracted with real life things that I was just easily winning victories. Winning these victories by only playing like 3-4 cards a game. It's crazy combinations that are being had here, and just goes to show when you have cards that create high power scenarios, when you can double a Red Skull into 30, or you can, Wong your Black Panther into Arnim Zola and get those 32 power Panthers. It's cracked. It's crazy. And then you have Taskmaster to copy that as well. There's a lot of different avenues. I do like the version with Sauron better, but I don't own the card, so it's hard to say. I've never actually played it, but I've seen it piloted and it's pretty consistent. Having Typhoid Mary in the deck is nice, stuff like that. But anyways, let's get to the star ratings to see how this deck performs. All right, there we go. So as you can see, this is a pretty good deck. I pretty easily won a few games there. And I know, everyone's always like, well, you only show the wins. I tried to keep it as honest as possible. I had a few phone calls I had to deal with in between. But just try it yourself. It's a really strong deck if you have a few of the cards. But it might be difficult to try it yourself because it's an expensive list. I'm not going to lie to you. These are a lot of expensive cards. Even my own version has a lot of Series 3 cards. So if you're not Series 3 complete, it's going to be a struggle to find options for this. If you do have Black Panther, Wong, Arnim Zola, though, and Aero, those 4 cards are pretty crucial to the deck, and they will carry you in a lot of games, okay? The problem being, look at the cube gain. I have it at 3 stars. I have it at 3 stars because I think you can win a lot of games. I almost put it at 2 because a lot of the times your opponent's going to recognize what you're doing and just get out. So it's good to snap in advance. If your hand is looking promising, if you have a few of those 4, 5, 6 drops that you really want to play that work well in combination with one another, I think it's safe to snap. You can always get Cosmo, you can always get Shang-Chi'd. These are counter options we have to be cognizant of. But for the most part, your opponent's either not running it, doesn't draw it on time, or just, doesn't make the right play and misses. So you can just, pretty safely play out these combos and you should be fine, but they're probably going to retreat if they don't have those counters. So it's a bit tough to really gain efficient cubes. There's no shock value here. If you turn 5 played a 30 power Red Skull, you're probably going to copy it elsewhere with either Taskmaster or Arnim Zola, and your opponent can't really manage that. They're probably just going to dip. But I'm still giving it 5 stars for meta strength because I really do think this is one of the top decks in the meta and fantastic for battle mode even, unless you get directly counter. But if your opponent doesn't know what deck you're bringing, they're probably not going to build a direct counter. I tried with Goose, I think is a good option, and Cosmo and stuff. Still couldn't beat the deck. So it's just got a lot of outs. And also it's easy to retreat when you don't draw a really good hand and just move on to the next one until you do. So it's very strong in the meta at the moment. I think Shuri is probably at the top of the list for potential nerfs. We'll see. And then Aero, I don't know how you handle that because you could keep reducing her power, but the effect is really where she is so strong. So anyways, difficulty, it is actually slightly difficult. Even though you only have to play 3 cards to win, recognizing that that's your win conditions and trying to figure out where to allocate that power to dodge your opponent's counters or anything like that can be a little bit tricky. So I'm giving it 3 stars. It's not the most complex deck in the world, but it's not the easiest either. It's the late game too, so you have to know when to just pass turns and be happy with it and not get discouraged by that, okay? And then creativity, I feel like we've seen this deck for a very long time. It's just gotten a few more tools to actually take the next step. It's basically a 0 deck. But now we have Sauron and Shuri to help with the buffs and remove all those abilities. So now it's a little bit better. But before, we always saw 0 with Typhoid Mary, Red Skull, all that kind of stuff, Arnim Zola even. But recently, it's just gotten those more tools and gotten a little bit better. But there you go. That is Shuri 0. I think this is a really strong deck. If you want to try it out, I will have the deck code below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Snap, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, I will catch you guys next time.